Revenge with Karen.
The air inside a suburban mall at 6 a.m. smells like floor wax, stale cinnamon frosting, and the slow, agonizing death of the American dream. There is a specific kind of silence here before the doors open, a hum of industrial HVAC units that vibrates in your teeth, whispering that you are trapped in a consumerist purgatory without windows. I was standing in the middle of Trendsy, fast fashion hellhole that specialized in selling polyester rags to teenagers for the price of a lung. My knees were already popping. I was surrounded by towers of denim that needed to be folded into perfect, geometric squares. To anyone walking by, I was just Paula, a 53-year-old seasonal hire with graying roots, sensible shoes, and the kind of invisible demeanor that makes people assume you own at least 4 cats and a collection of ceramic thimbles. See a woman who probably clips coupons for cat litter. They don't see the woman who owns the terrifyingly complex portfolio of commercial real estate leases that this entire mall sits upon. They don't see the woman who could buy this store, burn it down for the insurance money, and sleep soundly on a mattress stuffed with the settlement checks. But right now, I'm undercover. I'm deep in the trenches, and I'm folding jeans. I picked up a pair of distressed, skinny fits. Fabric felt like sandpaper dipped in starch. I smoothed it out on the folding table, my movements mechanical. You're too slow, Paula, seriously. A sloth on Xanax moves faster. The voice cut through the hum of the HVAC like a rusty saw. I didn't look up. I knew exactly who it was. Jared, the district manager. A man who looked like he was assembled from spare parts found in a frat house basement. He was 32, wore a suit that was too shiny and too tight, had a haircut that screamed, "I yell at waiters." "I'm pacing myself, Jared," I said, keeping my voice flat. "It's Black Friday. The rush hasn't even started. The rush starts when I say it starts." Jared slammed his hand on the table, messing up the 3 pairs of jeans I had just perfected. "This isn't a knitting circle. This is retail war. If you can't handle the heat, go work at the library." He leaned in close. I could smell his breath, toxic cocktail of energy drinks and cheap peppermint vape juice. "I need speed, Paula. I need agility. I don't need whatever geriatric stagnancy you're bringing to the floor." I stared at the messed up jeans. A normal seasonal hire would tear up. A normal hire would apologize. I just smoothed the denim back out, imagining Jared's face being pressed into a waffle iron. "Understood," I said. "By the way, if you're into stories where arrogant corporate bros get dismantled piece by piece, go ahead and hit subscribe button and give this an upvote. It helps the algorithm know you enjoy watching justice served cold, and trust me, the tea I'm about to spill is scorching." Jared sneered, checking his watch, a fake Rolex that was probably turning his wrist green as we spoke. "I want this entire wall done in 20 minutes. If it's not, I'm writing you up. Write-ups on Black Friday means termination. Do we understand each other, or do I need to draw you a diagram?" "Crystal clear," I said. He stomped off toward the back office, barking into his phone about margin compression and labor optimization. He liked to use big business words to mask the fact that he was drowning in incompetence. I went back to folding. The door to the mall corridor clicked open, and a man in a gray jumpsuit walked in with a ladder. It was Mike, the head of facility maintenance for the mall. Mike has worked here for 20 years. He has a master key to everything. He stopped when he saw me. His eyes widened slightly. He started to lift his hand in a respectful wave, his mouth opening to say, "Good morning, Miss Vance." I shot him a look, a sharp, microscopic shake of the head. "Don't blow my cover, Mike." Mike froze. He's a smart man. He understands the hierarchy of the jungle. He coughed, adjusted his ladder, and muttered, "Just fixing the light, ma'am," before scurrying away to the corner. Jared poked his head out of the office. "Who are you talking to, Paula? Stop socializing. Time is money." "Just the light bulb guy, Jared," I called back. "Light bulb guy doesn't pay your salary." "I do," Jared screamed. I smiled down at a pair of acid wash shorts. "Actually, Jared," I thought, the ghost of a laugh bubbling in my chest. "Technically, through a series of shell companies and a triple net lease agreement signed in 2019, I pay your salary. I pay for the lights. I pay for the floor tiles you're standing on. And pretty soon, I'm going to make you pay for every single time you treated a human being like overhead cost." The lights in the store flickered once, buzzing loudly, as if the building itself was winking at me. The timer was ticking down. Black Friday was coming. Jared had no idea he was standing on a trapdoor. To understand why I was enduring the verbal abuse of a man who probably uses 3-in-1 shampoo/conditioner/body wash. We have to rewind 6 months. I was sitting in a conference room on the 40th floor of a tower in downtown Columbus. The table was mahogany, the water was sparkling, and the lawyers cost $600 an hour. I wasn't wearing a polyester vest. I was wearing a silk blouse and a blazer that cost more than Jared's car. My attorney, David, slid a thick stack of documents across the polished wood. "You're sure about this, Paula? It's a distressed asset. The mall's anchor stores are bleeding. Trend Z specifically is showing signs of corporate rot." "I know," I said, flipping through the pages. "That's why I want it. I wasn't always the shark at the head of the table. 10 years ago, I was a regional manager for a logistics firm. Gave them my life. I missed birthdays, I worked through the flu, I fixed their messes. And when a new CEO came in, a guy just like Jared, all teeth and buzzwords, he fired me via a Zoom call to save 0.4% on the quarterly budget. He called me redundant. I swore then that I would never, ever be at the mercy of a middle manager again. I took my severance, leveraged my savings, and started buying commercial paper. Turns out, I have a knack for real estate. I don't get emotional about bricks and mortar. I control the ground beneath the businesses. If you control the ground, you control the world. The Trend Z chain is aggressive, David warned, tapping the lease agreement. They push for long terms, low maintenance responsibilities. They treat landlords like atoms. I've looked at their financials, I said, picking up a pen. They're overleveraged, cut corners on safety to fund executive bonuses. They treat their staff like cattle. I don't just want the rent, David, I want to teach a lesson. I turned to page 47 of the lease agreement, the boring stuff. The stuff nobody reads because they're too busy looking at the profit projections. "Add a rider," I said, my voice cool and steady. "Clause 12B, the emergency access and renovation clause." David frowned. "Standard boilerplate. Landlord reserves the right to close premises for safety upgrades." "Not standard," I corrected. "Aggressive. I want the right to immediate, unilateral closure of the premises if any safety violation is documented during a high-traffic period, ostensibly for emergency renovation to protect liability. No notice required. Immediate lockout." David looked at me over his glasses. "Paula, that's a nuclear option. No tenant will sign that." "They will," I smiled, because I'm offering them the lease at 10% below market rate for the first year. A corporate algorithm will see the savings and auto-approve the contract. They won't read page 47. Guys like that never look at the foundation. They only look at the facade. He typed it in. We sent it over. 3 days later, the Trend Z corporate office signed. They saw the cheap rent and thought they fleeced a naive old lady in Ohio. Didn't know they just handed me a kill switch. But having the switch wasn't enough. I needed to know when to pull it. I needed to know if they deserved it. So I created a fake resume, stripped of my degrees, my assets, my history. I became Paula Vance, former cashier, looking for seasonal work. I applied to my own tenant. The interview was a joke. The manager, Jared's assistant, a terrified girl named Brittany, didn't even check my references. He just checked for pulse and handed me a vest. "Welcome to the family," she had whispered, looking around as if she was afraid the walls had ears. "Just try to stay out of Jared's way." That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've been gathering data. I've been watching. And I realized that Jared wasn't just a bad boss, he was a liability. A walking, talking lawsuit waiting to happen. He was the cancer in my building. Back in the present, smell of burnt coffee brought me out of my memory. I smoothed the last pair of jeans. The renovation clause was sitting in a safe deposit box 3 miles away. But the trigger for it, that was right here in my pocket, in the form of a smartphone loaded with evidence. I wasn't just folding clothes. I was preparing the gallows. By 7 a.m., the store was fully staffed, a nervous energy vibrating through the team. There were 12 of us, mostly college kids trying to pay for textbooks, a couple of single moms hoping for overtime, and me. Jared stood on a step stool near the cash wrap, addressing the troops like he was General Patton, if Patton had a spray tan and a subscription to Hustler University. "Listen up, geniuses." Jared clapped his hands. The sound was wet and annoying. Today is the Super Bowl. Today is D-Day. Corporate is watching the numbers live. If we don't hit 50,000 by noon, heads are going to roll. And I promise you, my head is staying right here attached to my neck. Yours, however, he made a slicing motion across his throat and laughed. Nobody else laughed. "Brittany," he barked at the assistant manager. What's the status on the fitting rooms? Brittany, a sweet girl who looked like she hadn't slept since October, flinched. They're clear, Jared, but, fitting room 3 is still smelling weird. I think there's a sewage backup from the bathroom next door. Maybe we should close it. Jared's face turned a shade of purple, usually reserved for bruised plums. We don't close revenue centers on Black Friday, Brittany. Spray some Febres on it. If a customer complains, tell them it's the rustic industrial scent. I mentally filed that away. Sewage leak, health code violation. And you, Jared pointed a finger at Kevin, 19-year-old stock boy who was trembling holding a box of belts. Tuck your shirt in. You look like a hobo. I'm docking you 15 minutes for uniform violation. But I clocked in 5 minutes ago, Kevin stammered. Then you're working for free for 10 minutes. Consider it a tuition fee for learning professionalism. Wage theft, labor law violation. My mental file was getting thick. Jared hopped down from his stool and prowled the floor, stopped in front of me again. I was arranging a table of graphic tees that said things like slay all day and nap queen, ironic, considering nobody here was allowed to nap or slay anything other than their own self-esteem. Paula, he smirked. Grandma, how are the arthritic fingers holding up? They're working fine, Jared, I said, forcing a smile that felt like chapped lips splitting. Good, because I need you to go to the back stockroom. Fire exit is blocked by about 50 boxes of inventory that came in last night. I need you to move them. Move them where? I asked. The stockroom is full. I don't care where you move them, just make it look neat. Stack them in front of the electrical panel if you have to. Just get them out of the walkway before the district audit next week. But for today, just shove them wherever. I paused. He just ordered me to block an electrical panel, massive fire hazard, to clear a fire exit he had illegally blocked with inventory. It was a safety violation, turducken. Jared, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. Blocking the electrical panel is dangerous, especially with the amount of power we're drawing for the holiday displays. If a breaker blows, you can knit us a new one, he sneered. Do I pay you to be an electrical engineer? No. I pay you minimum wage to move boxes. If you don't like it, there's the door. Oh wait, you can't afford to walk out that door, can you? You need this job. He leaned in, his eyes gleaming with the sadistic joy of a man who has a tiny amount of power and uses it to crush people he thinks are beneath him. That's the reality, Paula. You're a temp, you're trash, you're disposable. Now move the boxes. He turned and strutted away, high-fiving himself on the thigh. I watched him go. The rage in my chest was a cold. Not, he thought I was trapped. He thought I was desperate. He had no idea that I wasn't looking at the boxes as a chore. I was looking at them as evidence. I walked to the back room. The fire exit was indeed barricaded by a wall of cardboard, a death trap. I pulled out my phone. I didn't move a single box. Instead, I opened the camera app. Click. The blocked exit. Click. The precarious stack looming over the staff break table. Click. Exposed wires near the water heater that I had noticed yesterday. I wasn't just a disgruntled employee anymore. I was a forensic pathologist documenting the cause of death of Jared's career. My shift ended at 2:00 p.m. I walked out of the mall, past the frantic shoppers fighting over discounted blenders, and got into my car. I don't drive a beat-up sedan to work. I park my 2024 Range Rover in the parking garage of the luxury hotel across the street, where I have a permanent membership, and I walk over. It helps maintain the illusion. As soon as the heavy door of the Rover thudded shut, silencing the world, I exhaled. I peeled off the polyester vest and threw it into the passenger seat like it was a contaminated hazmat suit. I drove home. Home is a 4,000-square-foot mid-century modern tucked away in a gated community in Upper Arlington. It's quiet here. The only noise is the landscaping crew and the occasional Tesla humming by. I walked into my home office, a sanctuary of glass and oak. I poured myself a glass of Sansera, crisp, expensive, and absolutely necessary, and sat down at my iMac. It was time to update the file. I connected my phone and watched the photos import. Resolution was crisp. There was the blocked fire exit, looking like a coffin waiting to be nailed shut. There was the sewage-leaking ceiling tile in fitting room 3. There was the time-stamped video of Jared screaming at Brittany until she cried. I opened a folder labeled Project Black Friday. It wasn't just photos. For months, I had been tracking everything. I had spreadsheets of the inventory discrepancies. Jared was shrinking stock, stealing it, and writing it off as damaged. I had audio recordings of him instructing staff to skip legally mandated breaks. I had enough to get him fired. But getting him fired wasn't the goal. Men like Jared always fail upwards. If he got fired, he'd just go to another chain, another store, another group of vulnerable people to terrorize. No, I needed to scorch the earth. I needed to make him radioactive. I pulled up the lease agreement again. I scrolled to Clause 12b. Language was beautiful in its brutality. Landlord reserves the right to immediate possession and closure of the premises upon discovery of any class, a safety violation that poses an immediate threat to life or limb. Tenant shall remain liable for full rent during the closure period. Landlord assumes no liability for loss of revenue. I cross-referenced the photo of the blocked fire exit with the state fire code. It was a Class A violation. Exposed wiring near the water source. Another Class A. I drafted an email. The recipient wasn't Jared. It wasn't even his regional boss. It was the city fire marshal, a man named Frank who I played golf with on Sundays. Subject: Urgent Hazard Report Trend Z at the Galleria. Body: Frank, I'm doing a site walkthrough of my property. I found some disturbing things. I think you need to see this immediately. I'm concerned about a mass casualty event if this store is at capacity tomorrow. See attached. I didn't hit send yet. I saved it as a draft. The timing had to be perfect. If I sent it now, they might just close the store for an hour, pay a fine, and reopen. Jared would spin it. No, it had to happen when it hurt the most. When the store was packed. When the registers were singing. When Jared felt like a king. I took a sip of wine. My reflection in the monitor looked tired but sharp. The gray roots I touched up with temporary spray for the Paula, the worker character, were starting to itch. Tomorrow was Black Friday, the day retailers bleed black ink. Tomorrow, Jared was going to bleed something else entirely. I checked the weather. Cold. Good. The shock of being thrown out into the street is always better when the wind is biting. I went to my closet and picked out my outfit for tomorrow. Not the vest. I packed the vest in a bag. Tomorrow, underneath the polyester shell, I would be wearing my armor, a tailored suit, Italian leather heels, and the deed to the building. I went to bed early. I slept like a baby, the kind of baby that owns the nursery and creates a hostile work environment for the nanny. Black Friday. 5:00 a.m. The gates rolled up and the horde descended. If you've never worked retail on Black Friday, imagine a zombie apocalypse. The zombies are holding 40% off coupons and demanding to speak to a manager. They didn't walk, they surged. A tide of parkas and frantic energy washed over the displays we had spent hours perfecting. Within 10 minutes, the denim wall was a tragedy. Within 20, the shoe department looked like a bomb had gone off in a cobbler's shop. The noise was deafening. Pop music blared from the speakers, fighting for dominance with the shrieks of children and the beeping of registers. The air grew hot and thick with the smell of wet wool and desperation. I was at the front tables, trying to fold sweaters that were being ripped from my hands before I could even lay them flat. My back screamed. My feet throbbed, and there was Jared. He was in his element, which is to say, he was vibrating with manic incompetence. He stood on the raised platform near the registers, not helping, just watching. He was screaming into his headset, berating the cashiers for not scanning fast enough. Faster, people. Churn and burn. I see a line, I see lost dollars. Let's go, let's go. He spotted me struggling with a pile of cashmere blend V-necks. A woman had just dumped a Starbucks latte on the table and walked away. I was frantically trying to blot it up with paper towels before it ruined $1,000 of inventory. Jared descended from his perch. Didn't ask what happened. He didn't help. Paula, what the hell is this? He shrieked, pointing at the coffee stain. Are we serving breakfast now? Look at this mess. A customer spilled it, Jared. I'm cleaning it up, I said, scrubbing the wood. You're not cleaning fast enough. Look at the line, look at the disarray. He kicked the table leg. This is unacceptable. I told you I need aces today. You are folding like a sloth with arthritis. The store went strangely quiet around us. Customers stopped digging through bins to watch. Staff members froze. I am doing my best, I said, standing up straight. The coffee was soaking into my Paula shoes. Your best is pathetic, Jared shouted. He was playing to the crowd now, fueled by the adrenaline of the day. You know what your problem is, Paula? You have no drive, you're content to be a bottom feeder. You're a wage slave, and you're bad at even that. Wage slave. The words hung in the air, heavy and ugly. He leaned in, his face inches from mine, spittle flying. Fold those shirts faster, wage slave, or get the hell out of my store. Something inside me clicked. It was the sound of a contract being signed, the sound of a gavel coming down. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the sweat beading on his upper lip. I saw the fear behind his eyes, the fear of a man who knows he is nothing without his little badge. I stopped scrubbing. I dropped the paper towels on the floor. "What are you doing?" Jared demanded. "Pick that up." I reached up and unpinned my name tag, Paula. The plastic felt cheap in my hand. "No," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the pop music like a razor blade. "Excuse me?" Jared laughed, a high-pitched, nervous sound. "Did you just say no?" I said no, I repeated. I dropped the name tag into the puddle of latte. It splashed onto his shiny, cheap shoes. "I'm done folding, Jared. You can't be done," he roared, his face turning beet red. "It's Black Friday. You walk off this floor and I'll blacklist you. You'll never work in this town again. I will destroy your reference. You need this job." I looked around the store, at Brittany, who was shaking, at Kevin, who looked terrified, at the customers holding their breath. "Actually, Jared," I said, reaching into my pocket and pulling out my phone. "I really don't." I tapped the screen. Send. The email to the fire marshal was gone. I looked him dead in the eye, and neither do you. Jared stared at me, his mouth slightly open, looking like a fish that had just been pulled onto a dock. "What are you babbling about? Get back to work or get out." I reached into my bag, the ratty tote bag I brought every day, and pulled out a manila envelope. I had transferred the documents from the safety deposit box that morning. "I quit," I said, my voice rising just enough to carry to the back of the line. "Before I go, I have some administrative updates for you." I slapped the envelope onto the coffee-stained table. It made a heavy, authoritative thud. "What is this?" Jared scoffed, reaching for it. "Your resignation letter written in crayon? It's a copy of the building lease," I said. "Specifically, the master lease for this retail space." Jared froze. His hand hovered over the envelope. "Why the hell would you have that?" "Because I own it, Jared," I said. I let the words settle. Let them expand and fill the room. "I own this store. I own the walls. I own the ceiling tiles you refuse to fix. I own the ground you're standing on." He laughed. It was a desperate, cracking sound. You're a temp. You make $12 an hour. You drive a rusted Honda." "I drive a Range Rover," I corrected gently. "And I make $12 an hour because I wanted to see exactly how you treat the people who make you your bonus." "And the answer is poorly." Pulled a second document from my blazer pocket. I had taken off the vest and dropped it on the floor next to the name tag. Underneath, my silk blouse caught the fluorescent light. I stood taller. The slouch was gone. The Paula the worker mask dissolved, revealing Paula the shark. "This," I held up the paper, "is notice of immediate invocation of Clause 12B. Emergency renovation and safety closure." "You're crazy," Jared stammered, looking around for security. "Someone get security. She's having a mental breakdown." "I am security," I said, cold as ice. "And as of this moment, this store is legally closed. Due to multiple class safety violations, which I have documented and just emailed to the fire marshal, I am exercising my right to secure the premises to prevent liability." Jared's face went from red to a ghostly, sickly white. You can't close the store. It's Black Friday. We have sales goals." "Sales goals are irrelevant to my liability insurance," I said. "You have blocked fire exits. You have exposed wiring. You have a sewage leak. You are a walking negligence lawsuit." I turned to the customers. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the inconvenience, but this store is currently a fire trap and a health hazard. For your safety, I am ordering an immediate evacuation of the premises. The store is closed." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some looked angry. Most looked at Jared, sweating, shaking, looking small, and then at me, calm and commanding. They started to put down the clothes. "You can't do this." Jared screamed, lunging forward. "I am the district manager, and I am the landlord." I stepped into his space. And in the game of rock, paper, scissors, landlord beats manager. Every single time. My phone buzzed. "That will be the fire marshal," I said, checking the screen. "He's 2 minutes away. Suggest you start getting people out, Jared. Unless you want to explain to him why you're holding hostages in a fire hazard." Jared looked at the envelope. He looked at me. The realization was finally hitting him. The wage slave held the keys to his cage. The next 10 minutes were a blur of beautiful, organized chaos. 2 large men in uniforms appeared at the entrance. It wasn't mall security rental cops. It was Frank, the fire marshal. His deputy, they looked serious. They looked like men who didn't care about profit margins. "Frank," I nodded, walking over to the entrance. "Paula." Frank tipped his hat. He looked past me at the mob. You said there's an obstructed egress, back stockroom, wall of boxes, and check the electrical panel, I pointed. Jared ran over, his fake Rolex jingling. Officer, this woman is a disgruntled employee. She's trying to sabotage my store. Arrest her. Frank looked at Jared like he was a bug on a windshield. Sir, I have a report of serious code violations. I need to inspect the premises. If what she says is true, this building is being condemned until it's fixed. Frank walked right past Jared and headed for the back. Jared tried to follow, sputtering, but the deputy blocked him with a forearm like a tree branch. Meanwhile, I turned to the staff. Brittany, Kevin, and the others were huddled by the register, wide-eyed. Brittany, I said, my voice soft now. Tell everyone to clock out. You're all getting paid for the full day. I'll make sure of it personally. Paula, Brittany whispered, Is it true? It's true, I said, and don't worry, I'm going to make sure you guys are taken care of. Frank came back out 2 minutes later. His face was grim. Clear it out, he boomed. Shut it down. Now, but the sales, Jared whimpered. Sir, have a pile of flammable cardboard blocking a fire door and water dripping onto a 220-volt outlet. You're lucky I'm not arresting you for reckless endangerment right now. Evacuate the building. The announcement went over the PA. The customers, realizing the shopping spree was dead, began to file out. Some grumbled, but most just looked at the chaos and decided Gap was a safer bet. Jared stood in the middle of the emptying store, watching his numbers, his precious, life-defining numbers, evaporate. I walked over to the control panel by the door. The key to the security gate was hanging on a hook. I'll take that, I said, grabbing the keys. You can't lock me out, Jared hissed. I'm not locking you out, Jared. I'm locking the liability out. I pointed to the door. Time to go. He didn't move. Jared, I said, leaning in, if you don't leave, I will have you trespassed from my property. I will make sure the police report mentions that you refused to vacate a condemned building. He looked at me with pure hatred. But underneath the hate, there was defeat. He grabbed his coat. He grabbed his bag. He walked out. I followed him. I put the key in the switch. The metal gate rattled and began to descend. Clank, clank, clank. It was the sound of a guillotine in slow motion. The gate hit the floor with a final thud. I locked it. I turned to face the mall corridor. Small crowd had gathered to watch the spectacle. Jared was standing there, holding his bag, looking at the shuttered store. The Trend Z neon sign flickered and, as if on cue, buzzed out. Happy holidays, Jared, I said. The fallout was swift, brutal, and entirely documented by email. By Monday morning, the corporate headquarters of Trend Z was in a panic spiral. Closing a flagship store on Black Friday isn't just a loss. It's a PR disaster. Local news had run a segment titled, Black Friday Blackout. Local store closes due to life-threatening conditions. They interviewed Frank, the fire marshal. He didn't mince words. He used phrases like gross negligence and imminent peril. Then came the legal letters. My lawyer, David, sent a notice of breach of lease. We cited the safety violations, the unauthorized alterations to the facility, the hostile work environment which created liability for the landlord. We attached the kill file. The photos, the videos, the recordings. Corporate didn't fight it. They knew they were caught. They were desperate to stop me from suing them for damaging my property value. Jared didn't stand a chance. I heard from Brittany, who I met for coffee on Tuesday, that Jared was called into a Zoom meeting with the regional VP and HR. It lasted 4 minutes. They didn't just fire him, they terminated him for cause. Gross misconduct, safety violations. Because I had provided proof of the inventory manipulation, the shrinking, they also pinned the financial losses on him. He wasn't just unemployed, he was blackballed. No major retailer would touch a manager who closed a store on Black Friday due to negligence and fraud. But I didn't stop there. Contacted the Department of Labor regarding the unpaid overtime and the time theft I had witnessed. I provided the names and contact info for Kevin and the other staff members. An investigation was opened. Trend Z settled quietly within a week, cutting checks to every employee for back wages plus damages. I sat in my home office scrolling through the updates. Jared T. Status, terminated. Store status, lease terminated by landlord. It was a clean sweep. I sipped my tea. It tasted like victory. People think revenge is messy. They think it's screaming and keying cars. It's not. Real revenge is administrative. Real revenge is paperwork. Real revenge is using the rules they claim to love against them. Jared thought he was a wolf because he could yell at teenagers. He forgot that the wolf is just a tenant in the woods, and the woods belong to the bear. 3 months later, the space formerly known as Trend Z reopened. Didn't smell like cheap polyester anymore. It smelled like old paper and fresh espresso. I had leased the space to a local independent bookstore collective that had been looking for a flagship location. I gave them a killer rate on the rent, on the condition that they hired from the local community. I walked in on a Tuesday afternoon. The lighting was warm, not fluorescent. There were soft chairs. Brittany was behind the counter. She looked different. Her skin was clear. Her circles were gone, and she was actually smiling. "Hey, Paula," she waved. "Hi, Brittany. How's the new management?" I asked, picking up a hardcover. "Amazing," she beamed. "We actually get breaks. And the manager, Sarah, she brought in donuts today just because it's human." "Glad to hear it," I smiled. I bought the book. I didn't use an employee discount. I paid full price. I walked out of the store and into the mall corridor. It was raining outside, a cold, gray Ohio drizzle. As I headed toward the exit, I saw a figure standing near the mall directory. He was holding a clipboard and wearing an oversized, bright yellow vest that said Temp Agency Survey Taker. It was Jared. He looked rough. His fake tan had faded into a splotchy orange. His hair was overgrown. He looked tired. He was trying to stop shoppers to ask them questions about their internet service providers, and they were ignoring him, walking past him like he was invisible. He was the bottom feeder now. He was the noise in the background. He looked up and saw me. He froze, his eyes locked onto mine. There was no anger left in them, just a deep, hollow shame. He saw the Range Rover keys in my hand. He saw the expensive coat. He saw the woman who had folded his shirts and then folded his life. He opened his mouth, maybe to say something, maybe to beg, maybe to curse me. I didn't slow down. I didn't sneer. I didn't gloat. I just put my sunglasses on, even though we were indoors. I walked past him without breaking stride. He was a bad memory, a stain on the floor that had been scrubbed clean. I walked out to my car, got in, and drove home. I had a meeting with a contractor about repaving the parking lot next week. The work never ends, but at least now the trash was taken out.
Well, that was a ride.
Um,
Um, people never stop surprising me. Appreciate you sticking around to the end.